So let's continue our discussion of secondary sources. In this screencast, we'll talk about restatements. This will be the only time we do talk about restatements, not because they are not useful or important, but because they're pretty straightforward and this should be all we need. So let's dive in. Some of you may remember talking about restatements in your first year classes, maybe contracts, maybe torts, and as you may remember, restatements are drafted by very respected scholars and practitioners in the field, and basically they put together basic statements of their particular area of the law. So that means for research purposes, restatements are going to be good places to go when you need support for a basic point of law. So if you need a citation to an authority, a persuasive authority, on what consideration is or why you may need it for a valid contract, the restatement of contracts would be the place to go. Restatements go through a fairly involved process for drafting, so you can see the steps here. They go through committees and tentative drafts and debates, so you wind up with the final product of a well-considered idea of what the law is in a particular area. Restatements are divided up into sections of general principles. Let's go out to Westlaw so you can see what a restatement section actually looks like. So here in Westlaw, in the Restatement of Contracts, you see the good old table of contents, and you can see that Restatement of Contracts is divided up into basic areas, meaning of terms. It might be divided into sections, or if it's an involved particular area formation of contracts, you might have topics, and then those topics are subdivided into sections. And each section will give you a basic statement of law. So let's take a look at Section 4, how a promise may be made. And as promised, it is a very basic statement of the law. A promise may be stated in words, either or written, what you learned in first year contracts. After the very basic statement of the law, you will see comments. These go into more detail about that particular basic statement. So you get into more detail about different types of promises, express or implied contracts, quasi-contracts, and within the comments you also have illustrations, hypotheticals essentially, so fleshing out how that particular basic statement might actually come to pass in the real world. And then after the comments and illustrations, you'll get what are called reporter's notes, and this basically gives you the background of this particular section of the restatement, and with that background, some citations to cases. Okay, so we've discussed what the restatement sections include. We've talked about the format. Again, this PowerPoint is available to you on Twin if you want a reminder of any of this. Where you find restatements? Well, on Lexis and Westlaw, but not on Bloomberg, and in each of those sources you will find case citations. So once again, let's go out and take a look, and we will continue where we left off here on Westlaw in Section 4, and you'll see up here links to the case citations by jurisdiction. And so you decide which jurisdiction, and you will see citations to cases, or just scroll down as I am doing, and you'll see citations to cases that mention this particular area of law, as well as mention the restatement of this particular area of law. So again, restatement is, like all secondary sources, are good resources for finding primary law, in this case, cases, about that particular area of law. Okay, to find restatements on Westlaw, if you go back here to the beginning, a couple of easy ways, knowing that they are secondary sources. So again, terminology is important. You can click on secondary sources and you can find a link to the restatements here. And the nice thing here is if you're not sure exactly which restatement you want to search, you can do a search of all of the restatements. The other way to find restatements on Westlaw is to type in the title of what you're looking for, and you can see it starts to come up, and then choose your restatements. You may need to scroll down a little bit. You may see view more here on the bottom. Okay, let's go over to Lexis and talk about restatements. So if we want to find the restatements, again, a couple of ways of doing it. On Lexis, probably the easiest way is again to just type in the title of what you're interested in, restatements, and here you see option of the various different restatements. So if you're interested in restatement of contracts, you can go to the table of contents, or you can go directly to a search where you get the documents, and you wait a second, and then all Lexis does is pull up all of the sections of contracts, and then you can search within your results here. You can also use the browse function, go to sources, kind of works the same way, type in restatements and restatement singular, do a search, and you can see your options here, and you can narrow by area of law to get the restatements, or just scroll down. As I said, restatements are pretty straightforward, so that's it for this screencast. Remember to click on the Think link to answer a couple of questions.